Western Wall, right? We saw the base over here, we saw the very base of the bridge, and the wall continues, right? It continues all the way along, right? I can show you, right? We were down here underneath the base of the bridge, and now it continues all along, right? And this is the part that's outside. So we're right around here. You can see, maybe you can see there's the Great Stone, okay? This stone is actually called the Great Stone. It's one of the largest, probably it's runner-up with the largest quarried stone in the ancient world. Okay? We're going to see it in miniature in the model, but I just wanted to show you in person. Once they leave, okay, אני שאני מפריע. This is the model of Herod's temple. Right? It's the latter part of the second temple. It went from a smaller Maccabee or Hasmonean temple to this wonderful big platform under the time of Herod. Okay. This was done according to the research of a man named Rabbi Zalman Koren. Right? And of course, with archaeologists, everybody always fights with each other, so there's some debate about the particulars. But this is basically how he envisioned the Herod's second temple. Okay? The second temple, the temple itself, was about 22 stories tall, twice the height of the Dome of the Rock that's outside, the golden domed building. Right? It was huge. And you can imagine with this extended platform, right, it was one of the wonders of the world in the time of the second temple. Herod always wanted to be important, right, and Romanized this made him important. So even though he was a nut, he built wonderful buildings, right? He built Caesarea, he built here this wonderful temple, and also the Jerusalem itself took on many building projects. This was the most famous. Okay. So is anybody looking at the temple and wondering why it's on an angle? Anybody want to just kind of turn it a little bit and give it a shove, right? Anybody else OCD? Okay, so according to Rabbi Koren, this was the straight east, straight west, north, and south. So it was on like the cardinal angles, right? This way, straight east. First of all, that's how Roman temples were set up in general. And so, you know, if you have Roman engineers, you're also thinking of that. And then this straight east was also done because I'm standing here where there's a valley, the Kidron Valley, and I'm standing where the Mount of Olives would be. Okay? So this would be the Mount of Olives. This is the valley, right, the Kidron Valley, and this would be where the temple is. You can actually visit this area even today. There were certain rituals that had to be done facing, you know, on a straight eastern axis, where they had to look straight into the temple, and that's his reasoning for saying that it's on an angle. It rises with the sun. Okay, the eastern wall over here, the southern wall, the western wall, and the northern wall. The topography of Mount Moriah is such that the northern side is higher than the southern side. In fact, when Herod built the platform, he had to build the arches and vaults underneath the southern side. Now that's being used as a mosque. Okay, Al-Aqsa is here, and the mosque is this way, is in this direction. In the time of the Crusaders, it was called Solomon's Stables. If you've ever heard that term. That's the underneath area that Herod built out to extend the platform. Okay, great. This is how the Great Bridge looked in the time of Herod. This is going to drop, and we're going to see the city today. Okay. This brown line is bedrock. Okay, the bedrock of the mountain itself rises as you get to the northern corner. Okay. This is the Antonia Fortress that Herod built in order to protect the temple, right? The attacks from Jerusalem always came from the north, right? There's even a saying that evil comes from the north. So in Jerusalem, you can understand why that saying happened, right? So the attacks would come down from the north because it was higher. It's hard to charge up a hill, right? And like wave a sword and the enemy has the upper ground, right? So it's much easier if you have the upper ground and you can just charge down. It didn't work, right? The Antonia fortress here didn't protect the temple. The Romans breached the walls. 3 weeks later, they destroyed the temple, right? In 70 CE. Nowadays, the Antonia fortress is gone, but this wall, this walkway, has a different name. Has anybody ever heard of the Via Dolorosa? Right? The Street of Sorrows. So this northern wall of the Temple Mount is the Via Dolorosa now. That's where it goes along. In fact, there's some stores on the Via Dolorosa. If you go into the stores, and they usually sell antiques or stuff like that, archaeological pieces. You go into the store, the back wall is Herodian stone from the time of the Second Temple. Pretty cool. Okay, this is what the city looks like today. You can see how in the 1400s, 1300s, right, the city was built up by the Mamluks. We're going to take it apart. Okay, this is the western wall of the hotel that we see outside with the plaza. This is the Davidson Center with the archaeology park. Now we see how the Mamluks built up the city. There's a valley, right, that goes along here, the Tyrolean Valley. When they built the arches and vaults and they built on top, they made the city level. And so we are sitting right here. We're inside of a Mamluk vault that was built in the 1300s and the 1400s. And we're sitting right here, and we will be enjoying the view in just a moment. Okay, in the last room, the previous room, when we looked at the very mountain itself, we were right down here. Okay, we were looking at the mountain underneath the Great Bridge. And that's about as far down as we go. I call this the vertical tour because we go down. There's another tour that goes the length rather, of the western wall. I call that the horizontal tour. Okay, those 3 red dots represent that large stone. Okay, the largest stone, largest quarried stone from the ancient world. It is about 14 meters across, 3 to 4 meters deep. It was originally about 3 to 4 meters tall. We don't know exactly, because when the Romans destroy the temple, they start destroying this foundation as well. They start destroying this retaining wall. They get to this big stone, they give up, right? It's too much, it's too big. Later on, after the Romans leave, the Byzantines are here, and then the early Muslims, people want to build on top of this area, but they have to make the retaining walls strong again, so they add their own stones. Okay? But this particular stone is still around because it's so heavy, right? It weighs 570 metric tons. That's about 100 elephants. That's a lot of elephants. That's a lot of weight. Okay, and it's right here. You saw it on the outside, but now you can understand it a little bit better. You can't even see the edges of that one particular stone, right? The edge is somewhere around here, and this other edge is somewhere around here. And interestingly enough, they put it in the middle of the wall, right? They didn't put it at the very bottom. You would think it should go at the very bottom, but they didn't. So there's a whole question, you know, why is it here? Why isn't this like one big stone in the middle of the wall? So it could be that there are other stones, we just haven't found them yet, right? It could be that along the northern wall that there's some very big stones. It also could be that, let's say there's a dip in the valley and you put small stones, like imagine you're building with Legos or blocks. You put the small stones in, then you lock it down with one big stone.